So, Caroline, you are the first recording of the year 2025.
I love being the first.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been on a little bit of a break over the holidays and focusing on writing and stuff. So it feels good to be back in the seat with someone that I already know, that I feel very comfortable with, and who is always inspiring and full of great information. So let's start out, being the new year and all. What's happening this year? Like, what do you guys have going on in the world of minerals over at Beam? What are you excited about? What are you apprehensive about? How's your year looking, sitting right now at the beginning of January?
2020, when I woke up on New Year's morning, I heard this year is going to be a banner year. And all you need to do is envision what the banner is going to read at the end of the year. So I've been working on not working on it, but envisioning what that might be. And for Beam Minerals, there's huge growth, but around the message of minerals, that's where I'm really in a learning curve, how to bring this message to a greater audience. Because it's 2025 and people are still mineral deficient.
Yeah, you're never going to go out of business because there's like billions of people that don't even know what a mineral is.
Right.
I'm thinking about, I think back in the day when I first started, I don't know, I was 5 years old. My mom used to give me supplements. I don't know if there were minerals in there, but in the early days of going to the health food store and buying vitamins, minerals were always, like this chalky powder, and they were always much cheaper than the rest of the supplements. So I always thought, they probably don't do anything because they're much more affordable. Come to find out years later that a lot of those forms of minerals are inferior and your body doesn't even recognize what they are, which I think is what's exciting about the way you're approaching it. So for the people that didn't hear your last episode, which by the way was number 518, and we're going to put all the show notes for this one at lukestorey.com/minerals. For those that didn't hear your last episode, break down, what our common understanding of minerals is in terms of supplements, like, your chalky, tablets that you can get, your magnesium, zinc, yada, yada, versus kind of a whole food mineral complex like you've discovered from the earth in the balanced ratios. So I think that's a great place to start. And then we can talk about why they're important to get into your body. But I think the forms of them is something that would really serve people to understand.
Yeah. Most mineral supplements, if you go to the aisle in the health food store where all the minerals are, you'll see all these bottles of pills. And most of them are made from rocks, shells, and bones. And then there are some that are made from salts. The ones that are made from rocks, shells, and bones, those chalky ones, they don't actually digest well in the human digestive tract. I mean, if you are eating and you get a rock, shell, or bone, you spit it out because you're not going to digest it well. Even though they're powdered, they still have to be broken down so much farther into their it's called ionic chemical component size. So that's very, very small, so that they can actually hit receptor sites on your gut lining to be absorbed into your bloodstream. So this is very, very small. Only about 10 to 12% of those kinds of supplements get ever digested down to the component size where they're ready for absorption.
So we're talking about a lot of expensive pee in
That's exactly right. And even worse, this is the thing, even worse than all of the expensive urine. This is the thing that I'm really wanting people to understand. Your gut microbiome, and what we know about it now, is it's like a forest. It's got a lot of fungi and bacteria and microorganisms and all these microflora that work together. When things are healthy and balanced, it thrives, and it's a really beneficial environment. So imagine a beautiful forest with all the right kind of nutrients in the soil. The plants have been growing and then they die and they decompose and they put the nutrients back into the soil, and there's enough clean water and there's fresh air, and that forest thrives. Now go take a wheelbarrow of, let's say, potassium and throw it on the floor of that forest. That's the equivalent of you taking a pill that's full of potassium. It becomes a concentration in your gut microbiome, and your gut microbiome doesn't work well with concentrations like that. it has to eliminate most of it and use a very small amount of it. And it messes up the balance of that beautiful ecosystem you have there.
I just did a show on mineral balancing, doing the hair test and mineral balancing and things like that. And one of the things I've learned working with Matt Kaufman, who's a practitioner, and we've been working on this stuff together, is the delicate balance between minerals in your body. It's so weird. If you take, too much zinc, it knocks out your copper. If you take too much calcium, it knocks out your magnesium, whatever it is. I don't remember at this point, but it's just like, it's a real science to start to understand the relationship between these minerals, and taking something that is even good for you can throw off the balance of other minerals and make you now deficient in those. It's so complicated.
Exactly.
It's really hard to understand.
Well, and the beautiful thing though, it's actually impossible to completely understand. I mean, I've done a huge amount of study about these relationships between minerals. I wish we could show people what it looks like, this complex mineral wheel, they call it, that shows all the relationships. The algorithm is so complex and is changing. It's a dynamic system in your body that's changing all the time. So there's no way that any practitioner or person or even an AI could determine what your body needs in terms of minerals at any given time. Okay? Because in this part of my body, I need a lot because I'm lifting at the gym. I need a lot of magnesium. Okay? But I don't need it in other places. In other places, I might need calcium. I don't, all sorts of different things. Let's say I've just eaten a candy bar. I need some chromium, you see? So there's all these different physiological events that are happening in your body all the time. And there are different requirements for all sorts of different minerals at any given moment. So instead of trying to kind of hack or think that you can figure out that algorithm that's impossible, instead what you want to do is find a way to give your body the balance, like all the minerals that your body needs, using natural tools, natural ecosystem-based tools. And then your body, in its incredible wisdom, will pick and choose what it needs, when it needs it, where it needs it, how it needs it, because it will be available.
Some of you might know I quit drinking alcohol, 28 years ago, and thank God I did in my case. But that doesn't mean I don't enjoy a great drink at the end of the day or at a party. I'm talking about non-alcoholic though. But the thing is, most non-alcoholic beverages are loaded with sugar and chemicals. And even worse, a lot of them have hidden stimulants that leave you feeling super wired and, of course, destroy your sleep. That's why I am in love with Little Saints. It's a clean, alcohol-free alternative that actually supports my health instead of wrecking it. Unlike other alcohol-free drinks, Little Saints has 0 sugar and only 5 calories. On top of that, it's infused with organic lion's mane and reishi mushrooms. I mean, how cool is that? Lion's mane in itself is a nootropic powerhouse known to boost focus, mental clarity, and even nerve regeneration. And of course, reishi is a classic adaptogen that reduces stress, supports the immune system, and promotes relaxation big time. So after a hard day's work of podcasting or travel, Little Saints is my new pre-bedtime ritual for winding down and ensuring I get killer sleep. To get yours, visit lukestorey.com/littlesaints and use the code Luke and you will save 20% off your first order. And don't forget, Little Saints is versatile. It can be a social enhancement or just a way to enjoy more peace in your solitude. That's lukestorey.com/littlesaints and the code is Luke for 20% off. What about this issue of heavy metal toxicity and the metals, certain metals attaching to the binding sites of where you need minerals, right? So if you have high, I don't remember which one's which, but so just know that what I'm going to say is not accurate, but the concept, say if I have really high aluminum, then I'm not going to be able to absorb silica or whatever it is, right? I think that's like another kind of depth of complexity to the issue too, that if we could go back 20,000 years before industrialized food or even agriculture, right? And we're eating organ meats and we're eating foods in season according to where we live, yada, yada. Everyone probably had plenty of minerals. But now you have generations of people whose parents and grandparents and their parents going back were all out of whack with not only deficiencies, but the addition of heavy metals with, industry and kind of this agricultural system where we make food that is actually poison. Mm-hmm. It gets super complex.
It does.
At a certain point, I'm just like, I don't know.
Again, it gets so complex. And the beautiful thing, because I've really gone down the rabbit hole and gone all into that complexity. But I came at that rabbit hole from a different perspective, because I was looking at these plant-based humic and fulvic mineral substances and saying, how could they work so well? Like, how could they have the incredible positive impact that they have? And what I found out is that they work together to remove heavy metals from cellular systems. They have this natural innate ability, and we can talk about the specific ways that they work to both remove heavy metals from inside tissues, which is inside cells, and then ultimately remove heavy metals from whole entire cellular systems like your body. So, and when you think about it, if you think about nature, back when the dinosaurs lived, or when there were volcanoes, or when there was the very beginning of cellular life, there were always concentrations of substances that were, and most of them are minerals like sulfur, or, the kind of gases and things that happen around volcanoes. These, to many cellular organisms, are toxic. So there had to be a way, nature had to develop a way to remove these concentrations of these non-beneficial minerals. Now, I do also want to say that, some minerals are really bad when they're in concentrations, but they're also beneficial when they're in very, very small trace amounts. So what we're learning about minerals and really beginning to understand about minerals is that we don't know a lot.
So do you think, based on your research, that that a lot of this mineral balancing and trying to detox the metals and then fill in this mineral with that mineral, I mean, do you think that is futile from where you arrive now, and that you can just like blast your system with these fulvic and humic minerals and kind of just remove the need for all of that extra work and expense and, kind of the minutia involved in that?
I want to say this, that first of all, everyone is deficient in minerals, okay? Even if you eat from your backyard garden, if you're eating food from the grocery store, the chances that you're mineral deficient are very high. So, and we're not just talking about, that you have low magnesium or something, calcium, whatever it is, but we're also talking about the balance between them. And this is what you've talked with the person that you recently spoke with about minerals. The challenge is this: gaining and maintaining homeostasis, which is balance, is an ecosystem issue. So if you have a deep depletion in one particular mineral, as your friend said, it could be because there's another mineral, maybe a heavy metal, that's too high, or that's getting in the way of that absorption because it's taking up the receptor sites. Okay, as an example. But it also could mean that you have parasites, or it could mean that you have candida, or you have some other ecosystem issue which is affecting the metabolism or the bioavailability of minerals in your system. So what I've come to understand is that we're trying to solve ecosystem problems with, single solutions, and we're not looking underneath the whole thing. We're looking at, somebody has heavy metal toxicity, they have mercury. Okay, we have to get rid of the mercury. Now, I'm not saying you don't. Of course, if somebody has very high mercury, it would be really, really important to find a way to lower that. But I'm saying that hitting it hard without really understanding what's happening in that entire ecosystem could have really challenging and negative effects for that individual.
So in essence, it's a kind of a mineral take on terrain theory, right?
I agree.
The whole body as a complex system rather than this mechanistic kind of slice and dice, which seems to me like ultimately you could end up chasing your tail a lot getting overly analytical about it, right?
And what do we have in this world? We have obesity, and we have thyroid issues, and we have lots of hormone imbalance issues, and we have a lot of adrenal issues, and we have stress issues, and we have, you name it, all of these kinds of chronic, they start low level and they grow over time. These are ecosystem issues. So the first thing that if somebody, I work with a lot of practitioners who come to us and want to understand more about minerals and use our products with their clients. And what we first tell them is you want to first support the entire ecosystem, give it the tools it needs to create balance, because the amazing thing about the human body is the complexity is beyond belief, but it actually knows how to do what it needs to do. It just doesn't have enough energy or fuel to do it. So the first stage of using minerals from my perspective is provide all the minerals in these balanced ratios. So you're giving your body those foundational tools. After that, then you can start. Many people, even if they have lots of imbalances, if you just use humic and fulvic, over a space of 9 months or so, things will start to balance naturally. Yeah.
You just reminded me, I was thinking about the relationship between minerals and hormones and neurotransmitters and whatnot.
Yeah.
As I'm starting to understand it, almost every biochemical process in the body is downstream of minerals.
Exactly.
I think that's the funny thing, because going back to the 70s health food store, it's like, minerals are kind of the unsexy supplements, especially nowadays,
exactly.
This crazy biohacking, supplement technologies and things like that. But I think what a lot of people miss is that the things downstream that we're trying to fix are ultimately probably able to be solved if you just fix the minerals first.
Exactly.
Would you agree with that?
I totally do. And it makes sense, because this whole entire body is made of cells. And inside the cells, we have these mitochondria. And the mitochondria generate all of the energy in the body. Okay, almost all of the energy in the body. Okay, so my moving, my talking, my thinking, my seeing, my hearing, my smell, the heart pumping, the lungs, every biosynthesis process that's happening that requires a certain amount of energy to produce, everything requires minerals. And it's not just like 4 or 5 electrolytes. It's 17 or 22, depending on who you talk to, foundational minerals needed in different amounts. So we have the macro minerals, which are electrolytes. We call them, they're the ones you need a lot of. And then we have lots of smaller minerals, some that people have never heard of, like molybdenum, vanadium, boron. Of course, we've heard of chromium and selenium and iodine. And there are so many, and you need them in the proper ratios so that they can balance, like you're saying, and create that natural support for the whole system.
When it comes to brain function and cognition, how do minerals play into that? And I'm asking because I just remembered I recently did this incredible neurofeedback training in California called Hold On.
Oh, cool.
It's a week-long or 5 days, 5-day retreat, and it is just wild. Anyway, I'm going to do a podcast about it for those listening.
Cool.
We'll dive deeper into it. But every day, part of our required, supplementation in their protocol was B minerals.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, the attendant would come around with a little shot, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I forget what Dr. Drew, I asked him about it, and it had something to do with the electrical, conductivity, right? It's like you're asking your brain to do this really demanding work that's very energy intensive. And he said something about, because you're on this QEEG thing and all that, and that it's really important that you're able to fire on all cylinders, to put it in a really simple way. And I was like, oh, B minerals, I take that at home. But that's like really an important part of their protocol. And it had to do with, neurotransmitters and just the brain performance. So from your perspective as someone who's been diving into all aspects of minerals for a long time now, how do they relate specifically to our mood, cognition, brain function? Are minerals a nootropic, or could they be classified as that?
That's an interesting thought. I'd have to think on that. So I think it's an interesting idea, because they certainly have nootropic effects. So, but here's the foundation everyone needs to know. Okay, we talked about the cells, and inside the cells you have these mitochondria. It's not just like one mitochondria inside the cell. So, like on the back of my hand here, in a single cell, there's maybe 200 mitochondria. In my heart, in a single cell, maybe 5,000 to 8,000 mitochondria. In my brain, in a single cell on a neuron, up to 2 million mitochondria.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Now, what you have to understand is every single electrical connection that happens in your body requires minerals. Minerals are the electrical capacity in your body. If you take the minerals out of your body, you could throw a radio in the bathtub and you wouldn't die because you'd already be dead. But
yeah,
no, but you get my
It's funny you mentioned that. I forget who it was, but I asked someone, we were talking about water and distilled water being devoid of all minerals.
Right.
And we were talking about the conductivity. And I asked him, I was like, could you throw a toaster in the bathtub if it was distilled water? He's like, probably, but don't do it because there could be some trace mineral somewhere, you know?
Well, you could actually, but probably it wouldn't. The electricity wouldn't really operate well in the water as long as you weren't in there, because you probably have minerals in you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's a really interesting thing about minerals is that the conductivity, you know, it's like the spark of life kind of potential there.
It's
that's really
absolutely the spark plug. We call them the spark plug of life. Exactly. But the fact that you have 2 million mitochondria in a single cell and a neuron in your brain makes you understand how much mineral content is being utilized for me to be thinking about what I'm going to say, and now the words are coming out. You see, all of the neurological activity that happens in the body, not just in the brain, but actually throughout the body to make this possible. So, you know, that's the fundamental understanding is you absolutely have to have minerals, and you also have to have minerals that are going to cross the blood-brain barrier. So that's the beautiful thing again about humic and fulvic is they cross the blood-brain barrier. They become available in every part of your body, and not all minerals do.
How does that ionic exchange work? I think myself and probably many people have a very cartoonish understanding of the blood-brain barrier. I've always thought of it that there's some valve in an artery, right? That's like it opens or closes and stuff can get up into your brain. And someone explained to me again, you know, I learned so much on the show that no, it's an electrical process. It has to do with positive and negative charge as to whether or not something enters. So tell me about how fulvic and humic minerals get into the brain.
Yeah, so most things require that electrical charge. So every barrier in your body, whether it's, you know, your gut lining or a cell lining or the blood-brain barrier, these are cell-based barriers, okay? And they have different, depending on where it is in your body. Even your skin obviously is a barrier. It keeps the wet stuff inside, etc. So these barriers, really what happens is there are cells, and these cells are pushing up against each other, okay? And they're creating a barrier because they're pushing up against each other. Now, each one of these cells has a lining, and they have these, you know, in your gut they're called villi, but in other places in your body, they have different kinds of surfaces that are creating that barrier. But those surfaces are lined with these cells, and the cells, the lining of the cell becomes the barrier. So when something comes up to that barrier, the barrier only allows certain things through, okay? In your gut, it would be like, or let's say a cell lining in your bloodstream. Let's say you have a cell in your bloodstream and a magnesium molecule floats by and it hits the cell, and the cell goes, oh, that's magnesium. Let's open up and let that magnesium in. Okay. But if it's, some non-beneficial substance, it's like, no, we're not opening that we don't recognize that. So it's the same with the blood-brain barrier. It's only going to let certain things in. Now, here's a cool thing about particularly fulvic. Fulvic your body recognizes fulvic, and when at whatever barrier that it hits, it's so much smaller than a cell. It's a very, very small molecule, but it carries with it the full spectrum of minerals, okay? So when it hits a cell, the cell goes, oh, that's fulvic. We know what that is, because your body has, all the cells in your body evolved next to fulvic throughout millennia, and it recognizes fulvic as a beneficial substance, and it allows it to enter. So, So it's not just carrying one molecule of magnesium, it's now carrying a full bolus of a whole bunch of minerals into your cell or through that blood-brain barrier.
That's so cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's epic.
It's like, it's actually, that's why I call it, it is Mother Nature's mineral replenishment technology. It truly is a technology.
Does this ability for the fulvic to gain entry to the cell explain why psychedelics are much more potent when you take them with like shilajit or beam minerals or something?
That's exactly why.
It is it? Okay,
That's
I've discovered
exactly
this accidentally.
Oh, you did?
Taking what I think is a microdose or maybe like a handshake dose on a day off, where I don't have any work to do. I'm not trying to like have a journey, but, bump it up 100 milligrams. And if I slug it down with beam minerals, it's a lot stronger. And I'm wondering if,
it's literally because, so
it's
so
not
fulvic,
placebo then. Okay, good.
No, fulvic is actually one of the strongest flavonoids, which is an intercellular transporter. So what happens is that those molecules of the psilocybin are clinging to the fulvic molecule because of its strong electrical charge. It hits the cell opens, says, great, bring it on in. It brings it in. And then it changes its polarity and it drops all that off into your tissue. Boom.
That's crazy.
You see? In fact, I mean, I've had people use it, who are drinkers, they use it for that. I personally had experience of something like that, what you're talking about.
Interesting.
So,
yeah. I noticed it one time in particular when I took like a pretty large dose of shilajit, not really thinking about it, but just like, I know when you use psychedelics, it burns your minerals out pretty badly. I think that's one of the, especially, larger dose journeys and things like that. So I'm
really
always taking a lot of minerals. So I was going to do just a little bit more psilocybin and thought, I'll take a bunch of shilajit. I was like, what the hell happened? It was like way stronger than I wanted it to be.
Right,
so
right,
I was like,
exactly.
Is that real? So I guess that is real.
It's absolutely real.
Okay,
and
good.
shilajit is a humic and fulvic substance.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Check this out. With everything that's going on with our food, air, and water, detoxing is no longer optional. And if you really want vitality, it's an absolute must. One of the best ways to remove toxins from the body is through sweating. But did you know that not all sweat is created equal? When you hop into an infrared sauna, the light is absorbed deeply by the body, causing your cells to vibrate. And that raises core temperature and enhances natural metabolic processes, pulling out nasty toxins like aluminum, cadmium, and even mercury. The sauna I use on the reg is my Amplify Full Spectrum Sauna from Sunlighten. Sunlighten's patented and science-backed technology provides the most effective, high-quality, near, mid, and far infrared available. They actually have 4 different sauna collections, each of which features different combinations of light and varying aesthetics to fit both your needs and your decor. And with any Sunlighten sauna, you can rest assured that you're going to sweat fast, sweat deep, and support your detox. And by the way, you can learn what makes Sunlighten my top pick on the Lifestylist podcast, episode 477, so make sure to check that out if you want the deep dive. And then when you're ready to treat yourself to the world's best infrared sauna, visit get.sunlighten.com/Luke Storey and use the code Luke Storey to save up to $600. You can also find that link in the show notes on your podcast app. And obviously, it would make 0 sense to detox while exposing yourself to high levels of EMF. And that's why Sunlighten designed their heating panels to produce almost none, so you can relax and detox safely. Again, that link is get.sunlighten.com/Luke Storey, and the code is Luke Storey. We may have covered this last time, but there's going to be tons of people that didn't hear that, and now I don't remember what your answer was. What's the fundamental difference between the beam minerals? And for those listening and watching, I've got a big bottle of the Micro Boost here. I go through this stuff like freaking water. but it's it's like dark brown, like a dark tea,
Mm-hmm.
but the consistency is like water, and it's virtually flavorless, and it has like a mild earthy flavor. Whereas Shilajit is very difficult to work with because if it's cold, it's like too hard. You can't break it up. If it's hot, it gets sticky and gets all over everything. It's not a very practical kind of thing to take supplement wise. But from what I understand, both of them come from ancient decomposed plant matter somewhere under the earth. So what's the difference between, the tar kind of Shilajit and how you formulate? Well, I guess God formulates your minerals, but this version of it that's like suspended in water and is easy to take and easy to travel with and all that stuff.
But the main difference between there's a couple differences between Shilajit and what we have. So the liquid minerals that we make actually come from a material called humate, and it's a black crystalline kind of sandy-like substance that comes from about 10 to 12 feet below the earth. Both Shilajit and humate come from ancient decomposed rainforests. So 65 million years ago, the earth was covered with rainforests all over, and a meteor hit the Yucatan. It killed 75% of all life on earth in a few hours. And all these rainforests around the earth died and decomposed. So in the Himalayas, that material became Shilajit. In the British Isles, it became peat. In the Amazon basin, they have something called terra preta. And in North America, there's humate, leonardite, a few others like that. So the main thing I want people to know about Shilajit is great. It's definitely a really good, powerful humic substance. There are three challenges with using Shilajit. One is the flavor. If you're sensitive to flavors, it can be a bummer. Okay.
I live with the woman who's very sensitive to flavors.
Yeah.
And
see, I don't like it.
Trying to get her to take Shilajit is a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah. And if you're really trying to get your minerals in every day and you just are struggling with that, that's a drag. So that's the first thing. The second is that for people who are very sensitive, if they've had autoimmune, Lyme's disease, long COVID, or mold exposure, their systems can be very sensitive to detox responses. And humic, and especially a strong humic substance like Shilajit, can cause detox responses when you're first using it. Again, remembering that these are ecosystem tools, you need to use very small amounts if you're sensitive to introduce it to your ecosystem. Then your ecosystem goes, oh, cool, great, I can finally get rid of some of this stuff. But if you add a lot right away, your body says, cool, all these toxins I've had, I'm going to get rid of them now. And you might get, achy kidneys or achy joints or a rash or a pimple or, things like that.
Yeah,
okay?
like Herxheimer reaction
exactly.
kind of situation.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. So that's the other thing about Shilajit. It's a little hard to know how much am I getting. So it's harder to titrate or start small and build up for someone who's sensitive. The third thing with Shilajit, and I should send you a video about Shilajit sourcing. So the challenge with Shilajit is in the East, they've learned that Westerners will pay a lot for Shilajit. So they will take a very small amount of Shilajit and they'll add other tarry dirt substances to build it out into a larger amount. So if you're going to use Shilajit, you absolutely have to check your source, ask for a certificate of analysis, and make sure that you're actually getting a humic substance and not something else.
Yeah, it's, from what I understand, pretty prone to things like mold and heavy metal
That's
contamination and all this kind of funny stuff. Back in the day when I used to first buy Shilajit, I realized it's also really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So I was ordering it on Etsy from some like old witchy woman in Siberia, and she had her lab report on there, right? But I never knew if the lab report was real.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
Anyone
the
can
other
like make
thing.
a PDF and throw it up on your Etsy account. So I was like, I don't know. I took it and I seemed to be fine, but I just had to kind of take her word as some unknown person that I've never met, that her lab report, the analysis was accurate and recent and all of that. I'm sure there are some unscrupulous vendors out there that probably are putting up a fake lab report or else just don't have one at all. And they're just like, oh, trust us, it'll be fine. So that's interesting though, going back to these decomposed rainforests and how they showed up on different, continents, kind of in different different forms,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Going back to the peat, really interesting substance. Have you heard of people making? There's some kind of like people make bedding out of peat moss and things like that. It has some sort of, a superpowers, some kind of mystical, out of radiation protection. I forget what it was, but it's something like that's on my kind of back list of things to research. Have you looked into like other uses of peat?
Well, peat is actually a really cool substance. It's a humic substance, and it's well known in the kind of the shamanic people in the British Isles used humic for healing and for all sorts, and peat moss for all sorts of, they packed wounds with it, all sorts of things. The problem with peat is it's not a sustainable resource at all. Like not at all. So there's only a certain amount of it in the British Isles. That's it. That's where peat is.
So it can't be ethically and sustainably harvested.
Not really.
Okay.
No. And there's a lot of, if you go out and you research it, you'll find out. People are not, they're saying don't buy, people, you can buy peat moss in a bag and put it on your plant, your house plants. And they're like, don't do that. There's only so much of this and you're just, so, because you're really destroying natural ecosystems. So, again.
And where you're mining your minerals, I'm assuming doesn't have that issue. And is there just kind of an unlimited supply if you have the mineral rights to that particular land? Like I'm assuming where you're getting yours. I mean, is there ever going to be a point where you're like, oops, we hit the bottom, it's gone?
Well, what I'll tell you is, we sell our products all over the world, and we're not a humongous company, but we've gotten pretty big. And, in a year, we maybe use 3 tons of humate of the original material. Okay. So, and I don't know, I'm trying to think of how many orders that is and give you an idea, but I can't pull that number out. But there are literally hundreds of millions of tons just in the deposit where we get ours.
Wow.
Okay. And there are many other deposits around the North America. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Going back to the blood-brain barrier, you reminded me of this issue with EMF. I always talk about EMF because I just think it's the elephant in the room. Everyone's like hung up on Fruit Loops. And I'm like, meanwhile, we're being poisoned in the skies and freaking 5G towers outside every school and church. It's just like such a horrible issue. But, there are certain things you can do in the physical realm, in the kind of energetic realm. But something that I'm very interested in is what we can do to fortify our body inside. And one of the main issues with radio frequencies is this calcium influx, right? You have this voltage-gated calcium channel in your cell. And when you're exposed to radio frequencies, it allows too much calcium to flood in, causes magnesium deficiency, causes you to, be... I'm assuming probably having other issues related to your cells just being the wrong pH or whatever it is. I just know it's not good for you, right? Have you seen any research in terms of fortifying the body with minerals and fortifying the cells as the way you described as kind of an internal protection against some of those fields? Is there any research or anything you've seen to that end?
I haven't actually done that research. That's a really interesting topic, and I've gotten really interested because I'm very interested in how people's in modern people, the pineal gland gets calcified, and the pineal gland is super important for all your mind opening processes and for mental health, cognition, as well as so many other parts of the body in terms of the release of endorphins and other neurotransmitter washes in your body. So it's something that I'm working on because I have no idea. I kind of learned about this and I'm like, wow, how am I, if my pineal gland is calcified, how am I going to remove it? I want clear it, because there are ways that you can do that. And a lot of those are using minerals. So again, if we think about, I'm going to go back to the ecosystem. Okay. So if, the fact is we are part, as you said earlier, we are all one. We're one thing. We think of ourselves as separate from the earth, but we're actually part of the earth's ecosystem. And we're out of balance, and we're making the earth out of balance. So if we can get in balance by putting these natural substances in that are natural balancers of our entire ecosystem, I actually believe we will start to also begin to create more balanced systems on the earth or with the earth.
100%. I mean, imagine if everyone was healthy, the kind of decisions they would make, right? If people were emotionally regulated, were cognitively functional, you know what I mean? It's like we'd have a totally different world. And
so
the
true.
Understanding that, as you said so beautifully, that I think we think of nature being this thing outside of ourselves that we can go recreate, right? Recreate a natural life out there in nature. But the understanding that it's actually what we are nature. I mean, if you know your nature, you know that you and that oak tree out there are the same thing. You're not going to walk by and throw your axe at the tree just for the hell of it, or litter or pollute, pour some shit down the drain in front of your house thinking, oh, it's going to end up somewhere. No, it's like ending up in you.
Exactly.
Eventually, right? You're pouring that like paint thinner or whatever, glyphosate, Roundup. You think, oh, I'm just pouring it out into a landfill. You are the landfill.
Exactly.
So I think there's a lot to that.
There's so much to it. This whole concept and actually experience that I've had of how we are all one thing, and ultimately underneath everything is minerals, creating these electrical vibrational. I mean, if you just keep going down the rabbit hole, you end up in quantum theory when you study minerals. You end up in everything is vibration, everything is atoms with, neutrons, and in the whole way that protons and neutrons work. I mean, the neutron cloud and, singularity. I mean, this is a whole world that totally blows my mind and has made me even more focused on helping people's ecosystems gain and maintain balance. Because the simplest thing that one can do for their health, and I'm not talking about even performance, like high performance, biohacking. I'm talking about the regular person who goes home at night and doesn't have the energy to do much and just sits and watches TV. I mean, for that person, putting some minerals in their body, some full spectrum plant-based minerals, can be an absolute game changer. They actually might start going, oh, gee, when I put that cup of coffee in, or when I put that, candy bar, it doesn't feel really well. Because they might start to actually notice, because literally all the vibration in their body shifts. You see, it's like, it's a catalyst.
Oh my God, you just reminded me of another thing. For a hack for people, I'm sure a lot of people use beam minerals, listening already. Those that don't, when you get some, definitely try this. Have you noticed, going back to the mushrooms thing, the potentiation? Is that a word, potentiation?
Yeah.
Thank you. But putting some of this in your coffee makes your coffee way stronger. Have you noticed that?
Yes, I'm telling you, it will.
It's crazy.
It totally will. Or a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah.
Going back to the pineal gland, because this is something in the, in the realm of us metaphysical, new agey types, we're always concerned about, and looking at the fluoridation of water and like, why would they possibly want to do that? There's no purpose to it other than to try to hurt us or something. But many of us have been aware of this calcified pineal gland thing for a long time. And so you hear different things. Oh, this thing decalcifies it and this thing does. I interviewed Dr. Jack Cruz years ago, who's a neurosurgeon. He's opened a lot of brains. And I was like, all right, what's the deal with this calcified pineal gland? Is that a real thing? And he goes, oh yeah, very much. And so I had him explain it to me. And what I was picturing was like, when you get kind of lime scale around your sink, like that hard white substance, if you have really, a mineralized water, hard water.
Yeah.
I said, is it like that? Is it like a crust? And he said, no, it's like a white sludge. And he says it's very real, but it's not, it doesn't harden, but it grows over time and just becomes thicker and thicker, and eventually just encases the entire pineal gland. And he's seen it. I mean, he said most people that he opens up have that. Yeah. Yes. And I was like, well, how do you get rid of it? I don't think he knew.
Yeah.
But it makes sense that there could be something, because Shilajit is one of the things I've heard that helps.
Now I want to open up my brain and see what mine looks like.
Well, that's the thing. You don't know if yours is like uncalcified until you die and someone does an autopsy on you, you know? But it makes sense to me the way, I don't know, the way the fulvic and humic kind of just clean up excess
exactly.
mineral deposits. You know, it's just like on a fundamental level, it makes sense. And if it's crossing the blood-brain barrier, it seems that it would assist with that.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And again, we'd have to do some studies to find out. I dream of, you know, in my next life, I'm going to be a scientific researcher.
I think about that stuff too, because I have ideas like that one. I'm like, I don't know. It makes sense fundamentally and just common sense wise as a broad idea, but where's the proof? Where's the papers? You know, it's like you want to see, you want to be able to verify kind of some of your theories that you come up with, you know?
One of the things that we have kind of heard back from people who use the beam minerals is that people who are going through lots of change in their life, and maybe they're having mind-opening experiences, or they're having, you know, some big change that, you know, like they went to a psychologist, they did some work, or they did some plant medicine or whatever, and they had a big shift. And then afterwards, there's oftentimes that rubber band effect. You know, you stretch it so far and it goes right back to where it was. And they're not having that experience. And what Dan, who I work with, says is that putting the minerals in the body just on an energetic level allows people to hold a different vibration for longer and sustain it. And again, because having gone down the rabbit hole and understanding how minerals work at an energetic, vibrational level, it completely makes sense. And that has absolutely been my personal experience. So, you know, before taking minerals, I had a lot of anxiety. I had flatlined adrenals because I'd had lived in such intense stress. I had trauma growing up, and I didn't sleep at night. I had a really hard time sleeping. And I had, of course, lots of physical chronic issues, which were also a result of a lot of that psychological stress. So as I got remineralized, my whole nervous system was able to relax, and I started sleeping at night. I started sleeping through the night. I started being able to be more responsive instead of reactive. I started to be able to experience a change that sustained over time, and I could build on it and then begin to create a different life, you know, that now I really love.
Yeah, that's interesting, you know, because I think go back and forth between the hierarchy of relevance and importance in terms of your mental, emotional, spiritual health, and then the health of the body. And I think I do a decent job on this show of talking to guests that are experts in all of those realms, right? From one perspective, I think, heal your family shit, your trauma, get a relationship with God as you understand God. And, you know, if you become mentally and emotionally and spiritually fit enough, then it's not going to matter so much what you eat and your diet and detoxing, and a lot of your physical issues will go away, like Joe Dispenza's work, right? People come in and, you know, get a meditation and breathwork practice, and all of a sudden they don't have lupus anymore or whatever, right? I definitely believe in that. Yet on the other side, to your point, if your body is toxic or deficient, it's much more difficult to do that spiritual and, you know, psychological work, because just the energy reserve's not there, or you're so out of balance, you know, and your mood swings and anxiety and depression. And it's like you're kind of going against the current, trying to do the inner work. So I don't think it's, at this point I've arrived, it's not an either or, because I've vacillated between those two, you know, like if you just get healthy enough physically, all your problems will go away, and that doesn't work, right?
Well, you know, and
just living in a cave and doing breath work, for some might work, for some of us not so much. You still have to go back and address the gross physical. So have you arrived at, you know, what's the balance point between the metaphysical work and the fortification and detox of the body on the physical side?
Well, you know, here's an interesting thing, because I've also been I've been doing Joe Dispenza's work and his meditations, and I've done a lot of study, reading what he is talking about and listen to him talk. And, you know, he's talking about this concept of the quantum, and the interesting thing is the fulvic molecule is a quantum molecule. This is the interesting thing, okay?
Wow.
So the fulvic molecule is the only molecule on Earth that can change its polarity. And when you study how that polarity change happens, you end up in quantum mechanics, quantum singularities, and studying about that, okay? And so when I went and spoke and listened to Joe Dispenza talk about the quantum and how it works, it dawned on me that this is one of the reasons that the fulvic is helping people, because it's actually supporting the quantum, their connection with the quantum. And it's actually like, it's almost like creating an opening in their body for the possibility of quantum recognition. That's kind of what I saw. So I actually have this dream of working with the scientists who he's working with and bringing fulvic to them and explaining how it works, and said, let's take a cohort of his meditators and let's give this cohort fulvic during their workshop, and let's not give fulvic to this cohort and see what happens. And I have no doubt that they are going to see their changes that they usually see go off the charts.
That would be epic.
It would be epic.
That's one of the things I think that's so cool about Dr. Joe's work is the ongoing research.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really interesting because you can go sit in one of his retreats and have an experience,
Mm-hmm.
and very clearly people around you are having some pretty profound experiences by the noises they're making, which is shocking at first. You'll hear someone just like, freaking out. You know? And as far as I know, no one's taking any psychedelics or anything.
Yeah.
It's just on the natch. But I think it's really interesting where they're doing, the QEEGs and blood tests.
Yes.
And it seems like he's always innovating to determine what's working and what's not. And then, kind of forming the practices around that, But I think any kind of input like that would be really interesting.
Yeah. And I think I have the same kind of interest, which is how do we help people, just the regular guy on the street? How do we help the regular guy get up off the couch, turn the television off, and love life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think what you've created is really easy to adopt. It's, I use Alice as an example again. I'll try to get her to take a bunch of supplements, and she's like, dude, I'm not taking 15 pills a day. I don't care. She could be on her deathbed. She's like, I'm not doing that. She just hates taking a bunch of stuff, you know? But keep one of these on the counter and you have your little shot glass and you just take a shot a couple times a day. It's very easy for even a normal person who's not big on supplementing and all that to do.
Exactly.
Well, my friends, summer is winding down now, and I hope you all lived your absolute best life. But heads up, if you engaged in any sort of restricted diet or took any weight loss drugs to achieve that beach body, it's time to start thinking about what you lost along with that weight. There's actually a good chance that you created a nutrient deficiency that could harm your overall health, so listen up. One of the most critical nutrients to replenish is magnesium. It's pivotal for sleep, stress management, and hormone balance, all of which are key to a healthy weight. And Magnesium Breakthrough by Bioptimizers is the best way to get all 7 forms of magnesium that your body needs, ensuring you get the full range of benefits in one easy-to-absorb supplement. Their potent full-spectrum magnesium supports metabolism as well as a healthy insulin response and blood sugar control. And all of that can help you keep at your target weight. So to get on board, head over to buyoptimizers.com/Luke and use the code Luke10 to save 10% off on Magnesium Breakthrough. And remember, true health isn't just about losing weight, it's about nourishing your body with the nutrients it needs to survive. So hit up buyoptimizers.com/Luke and don't forget that code Luke10. Why can't we just eat freaking food and get enough minerals?
Yeah.
If I'm having a superfood smoothie every day and taking my desiccated beef liver, why am I just not good doing that?
Yeah. Well, it's good with the liver is probably really good. There's lots of minerals in there, and so very few people will do that, right?
Yeah.
So that's
I go through phases of eating my raw liver. They don't last long, and then I go to the capsules. But it's you got to take 18 freaking capsules to equal one bite of raw liver, you know?
Exactly. And plus that then has to be digested and absorbed and assimilated, which means transferred into your cells. So let's talk about why are people so deficient? Why you can't get enough minerals from your food? I think it's so important for people to really get this, okay? When a plant grows in the soil, the way that it grows, all of its structure is by taking minerals out of the soil, because all of the structure on Earth in this universe is minerals, okay? If it's a small pea shoot, the way it's all of its structure is minerals. If it's a huge cedar tree, all of its structure is minerals. Now, in nature, plants grow, ultimately they die, they decompose, and all of the nutrients that are in them go back into the soil. But we have been cultivating for hundreds, in some cases thousands of years, growing in soil, taking the minerals out of the soil, then we take the food away somewhere else and we eat it over there, and those minerals never get back into the soil. The same problem that we have with figuring out how we can get minerals into our body so that it's actually available, bioavailable, it's the same problem with soil. You can't just throw some minerals, some powders on the soil and expect the plants to be able to access those minerals. Same exact problem. In fact, the cells in plants, they work just like your cells. Mitochondria, same thing. Energy generation, same thing. The minerals have to get inside the cells. Same problem. Okay? So the sad fact is that to get the same nutrition from an apple that your grandfather ate, you'd have to eat like 6 apples today.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely true.
Sometimes I want to go back in time, but then I'm like, yeah, but I want the internet, like there's things in modernity that are great, but many things that aren't. I'm like, someday we'll bring enough of the past back. I mean, I guess that's kind of what you're doing, right?
They're doing in regen farming. Now, lots of regenerative farmers are using humic and fulvic. And they're putting it,
like
exactly.
Putting it in the soil?
Exactly. And there's lots of different agricultural tools. Even for your backyard garden, you can get agricultural tools to put the minerals back into your garden. And if you have a garden, I highly recommend you look into those.
And I'm assuming you could get non-food grade, cheaper versions of that,
Exactly.
right? So you're not spending your precious bean minerals on your garden.
Correct. And so those are usually called humic and fulvic acids. They're extracted using hydrochloric acid. It's not a bad thing. It's not, your stomach has hydrochloric acid in it, right? But they taste really bad. So you wouldn't want to use those for ingesting. There's lots of products out there. They are, of course, more expensive than some of the other things you'll get, but they're absolutely worthwhile for amending your soil. So this is one of the reasons that we're mineral deficient, is that we're eating foods that are just have much lower, they're not as nutrient dense as they were in our grandfather's age. The other reason, though, is that we're all drinking bottled and filtered water. Okay? So if you have an RO, reverse osmosis water filter under your sink, or you're going and buying water at the water store, that water has no minerals in it. And you need to add those minerals back. Now, if you're going to do that in some way that's with salts or stuff, it's going to make your water taste bad. So instead, you can just use electrolytes. You just fill up your water glass, pour a splash of electrolytes in it. Now you've got fantastic mineral water.
That's cool. I'm glad you brought that up. The water system we have here is RO, but then it has like a mineralization cartridge in it, And so I actually recently just had the water tested just to make sure everything's being filtered right. And it came back with a great mineral profile and no toxins. So
cool.
That was a win. But I do get messages from a lot of people about RO and how to remineralize. And one of the popular methods I'm sure you're aware of is like putting a pinch of sea salt in there. But to your point, that might, depending on how much you use, it might not taste great. Or putting like quinton minerals in there, but that gets expensive. I mean, that stuff is like not cheap if you're trying to, if you have a couple gallons of distilled water and you got to put a few ampules, it's going to be cost prohibitive for most people.
Well, the other cool thing though, when you think about electrolytes and you think about hydration, so you're drinking this glass of water, because you want to get hydrated. You don't want it to just go through and get urinated out. You actually want it to absorb into your tissues and assimilate into your cells, okay? Which is, yeah. So the beautiful thing about using fulvic, rather than that like mineral cartridge or the pinch of salt or the Kinton water, is those don't have the flavonoid capacity. They may get minerals into your gut or into your bloodstream, but do they have that delivery mechanism for the minerals into your cells? That's why I highly recommend people use fulvic, because every nutritional element you put in your mouth that gets digested, that ends up in your bloodstream, now has a much, much greater possibility of potentiation of ending up in your cells.
That's cool, because I have a couple bottles of your Electrolytes, and I'm just, I don't know, I think because the microboost is darker and it has a little bit of a taste, I'm just like, I don't know, I think it's stronger, so I end up using that one. So I have like a couple extra bottles of the Electrolytes, and I always run out of the microboost because I drink the shit out of it. So this is good to know. So even if I'm remineralizing my water with that cartridge, and I don't know what it's doing, but there are some good minerals in the water. But even with that, for maximum absorption, because of the interaction in the cell wall, that we can actually get these nutrients in there, I would still be advised to put some of the Electrolytes in the drinking water.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, if you're filling up a water bottle and going out for the day, put a splash of Electrolytes in. If you're filling up a glass of water, even though it's been, a little bit of extra minerals have come from your cartridge, add some fulvic. Fulvic is, put it in your cup of tea, put it in your cup of coffee, you can't get too much of it. Okay.
That's cool. I can actually integrate that because I got a new hydrogen machine.
Oh, love those.
That makes, I have this thing, what's that fucking, oh my God, I just had a total brain fart. I must be mineral deficient. I always think of the new thing I have.
You can open the bottle.
I have this thing called the Axiom H2, and it's this really cool hydrogen machine. And so you can inhale it, or it has these goggles. You can treat your eyes when you're working on the computer. And it has these earphones, which I've been using for my tinnitus and stuff. So it's really cool. But one of the things is you can make hydrogen water super fast. In like 10 minutes, you get, 2 parts per million and about a negative 600 ORP. So it's really rad. So to your point, I've been making myself a big jug of water every day, and it's my hydrogen water. Jared, what the hell is the thing on my kitchen counter, the other hydrogen machine? The little pitcher? Hydrofix.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to shit on Hydrofix.
Hydro-ion or something.
Hydrofix is awesome for those listening that have heard me rave about it. I still use that in the kitchen because it's just on tap. It just keeps your water hydrogenated all day long. So they're both good. But I like the thing in my office and the Brown's gas machine, the AquaCure. You can make water with that too. But to this point, I like the idea of like anyone, no matter how you do it, making your daily preparation of special water, right? And you bless it, put freaking crystals in it, whatever. But this is the piece I was missing.
Yes.
Because I make myself 1 or 2 of those every day. And, it's like my little pet project. So that would be a really easy thing to integrate.
It's a really good thing.
Cool.
And then, the other thing is you have a fulvic spray. Okay. So this is so cool.
I'm glad you brought that up. Go on, because I want to tell you something about that.
Excuse me, because this is what you need right now. If you're having a little brain fog thing happening from some allergies or something, in fact, I leave my eyes open and let it go in, because in your eye, on like one of the rods or cones in your eye, a cell has like 40,000 mitochondria. So if you're a gamer, if you're a person who drives long distances, it's great for.
So you can spray this stuff in your eyes?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
It feels so good. No stinging absolutely at all.
Because I have like eye fatigue quite a bit when I'm working on the computer.
You should totally do this. You'll be amazed at how it feels. You can even do more. I literally, because I work a lot on the computer.
We're both going to be super shiny.
Doesn't it feel good?
Yeah. I spray this stuff on my face a lot, but I usually close my eyes because I didn't think of that. But what I wanted to tell you about this, and this is, I'm not shitting you because you're sitting here and you're the guest and it's the polite thing to do. You mentioned last time that the spray is really good for body pain, sore back, knee, whatever, right? And I was like, how does that work? But I started doing it. I have these freaking things, the small bottles, all over the house. It is the most insane painkiller for the back pain. It's like nuts.
It really
literally stops the pain in like 5 minutes. and then I forget about it for, I don't know how long it lasts, but it lasts long enough for me to forget about it until, you know, the next day or whatever. And I walk by, I'm like, my back hurts. Well, how does that stop pain? Because it's not like menthol. It doesn't have any of the, you know, like CBD creams and things you would typically use for like just tissue or joint pain or something.
So muscles are cells, are made of cells. And inside those cells are mitochondria generating energy. When a muscle is cramping, all cramping in the body, whether it's a heart attack or a cramping hand or a foot or your back is sore, that's basically just literally the local area does not have enough. It cannot generate enough energy. So a lot of the cells have gone into an anaerobic function. And those cells, when they're in anaerobic function, only generate like 1/12 of the amount of energy. So because fulvic is such a small molecule, again, much smaller than a cell, when you spray it on your skin, we just sprayed it on our faces. It absorbed through the lining of our sinuses, through our skin. It went right in our eyes, and the mitochondria in our eyes are like, oh, thank goodness we've had a recharge. And that's just what happens on your back when you spray it on your back. The muscles in that local area are now supercharged with the full spectrum of minerals they need. So again, now we're in this thing where the body says, oh, I need this. I need it here. I need it. This is the way that I need it. This is how I need it. And it's all available for me, and I can pick and choose what I need. Now the problem is handled.
Makes sense. It's not that I didn't believe you when you told me that, but I probably thought like, oh, she doesn't know how bad my back hurts sometimes, you know?
I'm going to tell you.
I'm like, dude, it's nuts. Like, I still can't believe it works. Every time I do it, I'm like, I don't know, it's pretty bad today. And then I forget about it again. It's like insane.
Every single time I use it, I'm like, this isn't going to work. I doubt it. Even today, you know, so many years later, I'm like, this isn't going to work. And I spray it, and I'm like, it worked.
Do you think it's... oftentimes when I want to put something on my skin and I want to get it in, I'll use my little DMSO roller. Like I have a little roll on. So I do, you know, magnesium spray and the sauna and things like that. I have these little rollers all over. And I often do the DMSO and then the spray. Is that like overkill? Do I even need to do that? Or are the molecules small enough?
You do not need the DMSO transportation system with fulvic.
Okay.
So if you don't like that taste in your mouth when you use your DMS roll, you're probably used to it. Yeah. But me, because I'm more like your wife, I'm very sensitive to that. I'm like,
it's a very offensive smell.
Yeah, it's an extremely offensive
DMSO
smell.
Is rough.
Yeah, it's rough.
Only thing that smells worse than DMSO is glutathione.
Oh gosh, yes.
I have this glutathione spray, which is amazing.
RO, Glutaril.
No, what's the brand called? Oh, I'm sorry, brand. They sent it to me. I feel bad when someone sends me something. I don't give them a shout out. But anyway, it's very tiny. They managed to get the molecule really small so it penetrates the skin. But I go in the bathroom and spray that stuff. And I knew intuitively don't do it when Allison's around because I don't want her to like forbid me from using it. And one day I sprayed some on and then I took my hand and I was like, hey, smell this. She got so pissed. She's like, dude, what the
Why are you doing that?
It smells like a fresh fart in your palm. I mean, really it is not pleasant. I don't care. You know, I'm not bothered by weird smells and taste, but the DMSO has that sulfur kind of thing.
I'm just telling you, do not need to use the DMSO with fulvic because the molecule is so small, it absorbs through your skin into the muscle 3 seconds.
Okay, epic.
That quickly.
Good. Yeah. That's good. You saved me a step. I mean, I don't always do that, but sometimes if I'm in like a lot of pain, I'll be like, I better go extra. I did not know that you could spray the electrolytes in your eyes. Would there be any harm in like making a little Visine bottle of it and like taking drops of it in the eye?
I don't think so. I think it'd be fine.
Cool. Because I do that with Quinton.
Yeah,
you know?
I totally think it would be fine.
Okay, epic. Because the eye strain is a real thing, especially writing a book, man.
It's really
like, holy crap, a lot of hours staring at that freaking screen.
I mean, but you could just spray it. You know, you don't necessarily have to do the whole eyedropper thing.
Okay. I'm always just extra. I'm like, well, if spraying is good and you get a little in there.
I'm telling you, literally.
I want to like saturate the whole eyeball.
Okay, so for 1 week, don't use anything else. Okay. Just use that on your eyes when you're doing your writing and see how you feel.
Okay, epic. I'm going to do it. Electromagnetic frequencies are one of the most toxic elements in our living and work environments. Now, most people just resign themselves to accepting them and the consequences they bring just to use the modern technology upon which we've come to depend. But after a very difficult 3-year period of hell when I was living directly under 2 cell towers, I could simply not accept that position any longer. Because the effects of EMF are cumulative, even if you're not yet experiencing the full-on nightmare I was, I'm talking vertigo, sleeplessness, and migraines for starters, you owe it to yourself to mitigate the potential future harm of EMF. And by far one of the best ways I've found to do that is by using something called a blue shield. It works like this. Blue Shield devices emit biologically coherent frequencies that are essentially loud enough to compete against the incoherent, non-native EMF fields produced by things like cell towers and Wi-Fi. And the body preferentially entrains with those frequencies via sympathetic resonance. And of course, your technology still works, while the Blue Shield device supports your well-being at a cellular level. And this is, of course, a lot more convenient than living your life in a cave or a Faraday cage. And with a gang of choices to fit your budget and lifestyle, Blue Shield is a no-brainer. To check them out, just visit blueshield-us.com. That's BLUSHIELD, blueshield-us.com, and use the code Luke to save 10%. Again, check out all your EMF protection options over at blueshield-us.com. And again, that code is Luke. Let's talk pets. So when you came, we went for a nice, lovely walk. Thank you for joining me. I really needed a walk before recording. And that was Cookie's walk time. And then we came back for dinner and we gave her some micro boost just because I'm out of the pet formula. And I give her some version of your minerals every day. I can't tell what I'm doing for her. She can't talk and tell me like, wow, I feel much better. Thanks for the minerals. But she seems to be doing great for her age, her ripe old age of 9 years.
I think when when I was last here and I told you, put down a plain bowl for her and put a bowl with the minerals in after, and guarantee she'll go for the bowl with the minerals. And you went on a walk and you texted me later. You're like, it worked. That's right.
That's right. Yeah. That was, I think, the electrolytes in the water. Yeah. How does it, I'm assuming it works for pets the same way it works for us.
Exactly.
Is there any difference in the formulation? Is the pet one like more diluted or something that's not so?
Well, the main thing is people generally think, oh, I'm going to take the minerals and put them in water, because as humans, we often put them in water and drink. But you really want to make sure that your dog or cat gets all of the minerals. So we always recommend putting them on their food. So we just made a dropper.
That's what I do.
Yeah. And we actually just made a pet formula. It's a slightly stronger concentration. So you can just use a smaller amount and put it on their food and they'll get it all in one.
Got it.
When they eat because most pets will eat all their food.
Got it. Yeah, she's eating all. She gets raw meat.
Oh, she loves that.
It's like human food to her.
And that's the way to go.
You just reminded me of another thing. I forgot about this because we don't have mosquitoes right now, but sometimes in Texas the mosquitoes get really bad, and this freaking spray stops the itching of mosquito bites too. No joke, man. I swear to God, you guys.
We actually have something called boo-boo lights.
Yeah.
And it's in a little purple bottle. It will take the sting away from a bee sting, the itch from a mosquito bite, the burn from a burn. We had our granddaughter, she put her hand on a fireplace glass, burned her whole palm, and we just sprayed that boo-boo lights on, and she would just run away. She'd come back. We'd spray it, and within 10 minutes, we thought we were going to have to take her to the hospital. Within maybe 15 minutes, she was fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It really
I love it when shit works. and I can say, with confidence, like, no, I've used this thing. It does the thing.
Yeah.
Most of the time if someone comes on and they're representing a company, I'm assuming they're being honest about whatever claims they're making. But I like it when I've had the subjective experience because I know I'm telling the truth.
Yes.
So
that's the best. And that's the thing that we always tell people is have your own experience. We're not interested in slugging products. We want people to have their own experience. So,
do you think that if someone was on a real, consistent regimen with, say, the microboost version, and the electrolyte, say they're using both of them in the appropriate quantities per day, do you think that would, over time, eliminate the need for other supplementation, or would you recommend people still hit hard with the magnesium because we burn it so fast or anything like that? I mean, are you like 100% just all in on this form of mineral, or do you still use or recommend other minerals?
Well, first, what I'll tell you is that let's say you go get a hair tissue mineral analysis and you find out that you are extremely depleted in one mineral, okay? There could be a case for bringing the level of that mineral up over a short period of time using a single mineral, probably not a pill or powder, just so you know. But there could be a case for bringing that up to a closer level in a short period of time. I personally will never megadose magnesium. You know, people use it for sleep. They use it for elimination. I don't recommend it. If you want to do it once in a while, it's going to cause imbalance and your body's going to have to work to regain balance again. But let's say you really struggle with sleep and you need to get to sleep tonight and you're going to use it. Okay. But particularly as a woman women, as our hormones change, we can struggle with bone health. And I'll tell you a story. So this trainer of elite triathletes came to me and he explained to me, you know, what am I going to do with my older athletes? They're coming back to me with osteopenia and osteoporosis. Now, from the research that I've done, I recognize that what's happened is they've put so many of the, you know, potassium and sodium and magnesium in their system that their body was constantly having to balance. And it balances with magnesium, it balances with phosphorus and calcium. These are the things that keep your bones healthy. This is why my teeth had so many problems when I was younger and why I struggled with bone stuff, like aching bones.
Really?
Because I was so mineral deficient.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known about these minerals, you know, 30 years ago, because I was my teeth just basically all fell apart at one point, you know, especially when I was a drug addict for a long time. That probably didn't do me any favors. But then I was a vegetarian for almost 10 years and my teeth literally just like started falling out of my head, you know, because I was not getting these fat soluble nutrients and stuff. And then eventually I just had to like buy all new teeth because they're just gone. I couldn't eat beef jerky. I was just like, okay, I need to be able to chew.
Right. It's actually a huge part of health is teeth health.
Yeah, 100%. I watch my favorite show. I mean, I've watched dozens of episodes. It's called Naked and Afraid. Well, I like Naked and Afraid, and there's this other one, Alone.
Oh, I love Alone.
But Alone has fewer episodes, so I burned through them all. Naked and Afraid has 17 seasons or something. But there was one guy on there who's done a number of them. He's like one of their superstar survivalists. And in one episode, he just started losing teeth from freaking, you know, nutrient deficiency. Yeah, malnutrition. He's just like, oh, lost another tooth. I'm like, dude, you got to stop doing these.
If you watch Alone and they say like when somebody gets a fish or they get this berry or whatever, and they always talk about the minerals that they're getting.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And when do they drop out? It's always because of mineral deficiency. It's always because of mineral deficiency.
Totally.
Yeah.
I know. Imagine if someone could like hack those shows and sneak on some of your
minerals. I
always
like, if I ever did that, I would sow salt and, you know, like Himalayan salt, at least something into my...
Totally.
Actually, maybe it would be humic.
Have you looked into fasting with the assistance of like your minerals?
Yeah. So in fact, we just did... just earlier in January, we supported a 3-day water fast that Dr. Mindy Pelz was doing. She's really kind of the fasting person. She talks a lot about it. And it's incredibly helpful for people who are doing intermittent fasting or water fasting, any kind of fasting routine.
I bet.
So if you think about when you're in a fasting mode and your body goes into ketosis and into all of those autophagy processes, those are biosynthesis processes. What you want to do is give yourself minerals. A beautiful thing about B minerals, it won't break a fast. It's got no flavoring in it.
It doesn't have any calories.
It has no caloric content.
Right.
So you can take these to support all that move from, into ketosis and all of those autophagy processes.
That's
incredible
cool.
Support. It really will help with cravings.
Could be a real breatharian. They're kind of like Bigfoot. You hear rumors of them, and you don't know if they're, eating tuna and backstage after their talk about breatharianism.
I really wonder about that.
But I bet with the proper minerals that don't have calories, you could get away with not eating for a long time.
I think so. Oh, definitely.
You
I
know?
really think that's
I've been
true.
wanting to do a water fast for years, and I'm just chicken. I've done a lot of like extended juice fasts and cleanses and stuff, but never just with water. That seems, or a dry fast.
It's
like
serious.
That sounds gnarly.
Yeah. It's a really serious thing, and you should not do it without support.
Yeah. But people swear by it. I mean, I have friends that have, I don't know about dry fast, but my friend Alex Zach did a water fast, I think, for 20 days. And he's like, it was the most like profound spiritual experience of my life.
20 days?
Yeah. He
That's
said
unbelievable.
Said it revolutionized, I mean, not only his physical health, but mental, emotional, all the things. Yeah.
A very dear friend of mine, she had cancer, and they basically said, you're done. And she just decided to just do a water fast. And she water fasted for I think it was like a month and a half. And her cancer was gone, and she's alive today and totally healthy.
Epic. Epic.
Could be better than chemo.
Yeah.
And I've thought about that. If I ever got cancer, maybe I'll just do a water fast.
I try not to think about that, but yeah, as you get older, you start to wonder, or have conversations with the wife, like, what would we do if one of us got sick,
Well, since you're taking Beam, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I feel pretty good.
Creates a non-beneficial environment for those kinds of things in your body.
Yeah, I've never really been concerned about it. I'm doing pretty well. The only complaint I have is the back pain that I mentioned that I've been doing this podcast for 9 years. During the course of that, I've documented so many different kind of immersive journalism trips to go do stem cells or this or that and lasers and everything I've tried on my back. I've not been able to fix it. It's crazy. I've fixed a lot of other things, but that's one issue.
Maybe you should try Joe Dispenza's work.
Yeah. I've gone in and out of phases, with his stuff. I get really gung-ho for a while and I'm very consistent. And then I find some other modality and I switch and forget about Joe's work. But yeah.
I have a little healing story with that because I've had on 2 of my toes, I've had toe fungus for over 10 years. And I've tried probably 30 different things trying to get rid of it. And I went to one of his things, and we were doing a coherence healing, and I said, this is what I'm going to work on, this. And
did you get to be one of the Heelys?
I didn't. I wasn't a Healy. I was just one of the coherent healers. And but in the middle of it, suddenly I felt like a bright light just hit me, and it was like a crackle all the way out to the tips of my fingers and toes. And literally 2 days later, I looked down, and I'm like, on one toe, it was 90% gone. And on the other, and it's gone now. It's completely gone. Yeah. One toe is still growing out a little bit, but it's
is this like gone. The yellow toenail kind of thing?
Yeah. The thickened, all of that.
I've had that for 30 years. Yeah. I'm like, I buy shit like on Instagram ads. Yeah. Like, I'm like, how your phone listens to you? They feed me ads. I'm like, all right, here's my $50.
No,
I'm going to try it.
I've done so many things.
Nothing works. Yeah. I've done ozone bagging. I mean, I've gone hardcore. I've put injected methylene blue under my freaking toenails. Finally, I'm just like, all right, I just have really disgusting looking toenails. They're like an inch thick and I look like a caveman. It is what it is. But I've not tried.
You haven't tried Joe Dispenza. You haven't tried the quantum,
the coherence healing. Yeah, it's funny. Well, there's theories on that too. Of course, I've researched it, and they say, "Oh, it's because you have systemic fungus, your whole body." I'm like, I really don't think so. I mean, I do so much ozone, and I don't know. I don't have any other signs of fungus anywhere on my body.
Right, exactly.
I think it's just some mutant freaking alien fungus on the toenails. You're maybe the first person I met that figured it out. What else have we got? Oh, I want to let people know that if you want to grab some of these minerals, which obviously I highly recommend, I'm super obsessed, you can go to lukestorey.com/beam. That's BEAM. And it looks like we've got a code for you. The code is Luke20, and that gets you 20% off. lukestorey.com/beam. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. Electrolytes. So a few years ago, people started putting out these little packets of, the salt and minerals, and I've used them quite a bit in Texas when it gets really hot and you're just sweating your ass off all the time. But I find those forms of minerals pretty rough on the gut. I don't know if other people have that experience, but to take that kind of electrolyte, I would have to sip it very gradually over the course of many hours, because I've had experiences that I won't go into detail about where I've just pounded a whole huge thing and it hasn't sit well. why do your electrolytes not have that effect on the gut? What's the difference? Why are those kind of salt-based ones harder on some people?
Okay. This is fantastic. So many people are using salt-based electrolytes. Why are they using them? Because there's a lot of really big companies selling them, and they can be made cheap, and then they sell them for a lot of money, and they make a lot of money, and they use that for marketing. But here's the thing you need to know. Your digestive tract is a freshwater system. It is not a saltwater system. Your gut microbiome is a freshwater system. It does not want to be washed with salts. That's why you feel queasy. That's why that when you eliminate, the reason a lot of people get diarrhea, they use it when you're going to go get your colonoscopy, yeah. It's because your body says, I've got too much, I need to get rid of it. Okay. Salt-based electrolytes were designed for emergency situations. They were designed for soldiers who were on the battlefield. They were about to pass out. They needed a quick pick-me-up. If you have heat stroke, it's a great way to get a quick pick-me-up. Well, electrolytes would be even better, okay? But you don't want to be using salts on a regular basis in your body, in your gut microbiome. It creates havoc for these athletes that I talked to you about, these triathletes. They hate the salt-based electrolytes. The professional bike riders that we work with, they've always used those salt-based electrolytes. They hate them. They totally trash the stomach.
You know what? They're really, actually, I just remember they seem like they're kind of hard on the bladder too.
And so then
right?
That's
you have
the
like
other thing.
Urgency to pee that's not normal also.
They actually irritate the lining of the bladder. They actually create an irritation, so you actually urinate more. So now here you are trying to hydrate, and what you're doing is you're irrigating. You're actually flushing more minerals, more nutrients out of your system when you're trying actually to get to hydrate, and all that water just goes straight through. Okay, it's not actually getting into your bloodstream and into your cells. That's what hydration is, actually getting water into your bloodstream and into your cells. Okay, your skin puffs up, and
you had me at you're not a saltwater fish tank.
Exactly.
Right, that makes total sense. Sometimes I just need things stated in the most simple way. I go, oh yeah, that's just common sense, right? Back to the kind of terrain theory idea.
So I kind of see this rage of saltwater salt-based electrolytes as being this rage. And I'm already talking to people, and they're like, what can I do? Because I'm drinking all these electrolytes, and I still feel dehydrated, and I feel like crap in the stomach. I'm like, stop the salt-based electrolytes. Stop them altogether. Do not use them. They're just creating intense imbalance in your system, and they're not helping you hydrate or replenish. Instead, use fulvic.
I think the one thing those type of electrolytes have going for them is the ease of portability, right? In a little packet, it's easy to take on an airplane,
It's true.
I have a few in the side, the door compartment in my car. And when it's summer here, it's that ease. But one thing you did that I think is super smart is you have your little mini bottles too, which I take on the airplane, and they're small enough to get through the TSA and all of that. So I think it's like I would have to just adopt to having a little bottle and reminding myself that that's really not much harder to carry around than one of the little salt packets, Might not like fit in your pocket is easy, but if I'm going to feel like I have to pee my pants and, get the runs from drinking some water, that's like a sign your body's going, we don't like this,
and so we work with this tennis pro. He's actually second in his age class in the US. And he's this summer, he's doing all these tournaments in like Kentucky and Louisiana. It was really, really hot. All of the tennis pros are coming off of the courts, and they're cramping, and they're feeling heat stroke. They're really struggling. And he's like doing great. And they're like, what the heck? Like, what are you doing? And he says, this is what I'm using.
I shouldn't tell him, man. Don't let up that's trade secret right there.
So I made him into an affiliate, because I'm like, go, spread the word.
That's cool. I'm glad we got to cover that, because that was like in the back of my mind. I might have missed that one, but it's not that relevant now because it's winter time. But in the summer, man, if you live somewhere hot and humid like this, I mean, you can drink water all day long and it doesn't work. Like you need the electrolytes.
You need electrolytes. That's why we call it next generation hydration, because it's truly the evolution of understanding how hydration works in the body.
Epic. Yeah. All right. Is there anything we didn't cover?
No, I think we got it. I think we got it all. I mean,
Okay.
you and I, we could talk for probably 4 or 5
Yeah.
days. If we brought Allison
if we got
in,
into
we'd
the
talk for
metaphysical quantum
10
world,
more.
we'd really be going off on a tangent. Well, man, it's great to catch up with you, and
Appreciate it.
I just love your energy and your passion, and I find it so fun to meet people in general, but to have people on the show. You had this corporate life, and
Mhm.
you got ill, and there's always those great origin stories. But I love it when someone discovers something and they just go all in on that thing. Like, you are the fulvic humic mineral lady, and like that's just it. There's like this tunnel vision on research and your commitment to
Mhm.
sharing the message with the world. I find that really fun, when
Thank
someone
you.
just has their thing and they stick to it. I've always envied that myself as someone who's kind of into a different thing every single day. I guess that makes me a good podcast host, because
It
I'm
is,
going to
that's right.
find the people like you that really burrow into a particular topic and just don't stop until you know everything there is to know about it. And then you still don't stop.
The minerals chose me, so I'm their spokesperson.
How did that happen? And I know you told me last time, but how did you first, like, of all things to stumble upon?
Literally, I was introduced to them by my business partner.
Okay.
He's the one who said, "Hey, maybe you should try these. See if they make a difference."
And
Yeah.
they did, and
because they did, and so many different things changed, I had to do the research. And it was when I started to do the research and I had so many aha moments, I was like, oh my gosh, people have to know about these minerals.
epic.
And that was the beginning. And then at a certain point, I really got that I had been kind of chosen for it. We don't have to go into all that, but
Yeah. No,
sometimes these things happen.
I get it.
And so, and
I
I'm
get
like,
it.
I'm so excited about minerals. I mean, there are all sorts of different things that are kind of related, whether it's hormone health or adrenals or, sinus issues and mold issues or detox issues, but it all comes back to the minerals. It always comes back to the minerals.
My apologies. There's one more thing I wanted to ask you about. Psych, we're not done. We talked about this unique ability for the fulvic humic to get into the cell to deliver minerals, other nutrients, psilocybin, caffeine, whatever. Tell me again, I know you explained this before, but I found this really interesting. What about the shuttling waste out of the cell, the detox? We touched on it earlier that people can have Herx reactions and things like that, but how does that work exactly? Because it's not like a binding thing. If you take activated charcoal or zeolite or something, it's going in the system and, using that kind of absorption to get something then out of your digestive system. But this is working on a cellular level, which is different and interesting to me.
So the plant-based minerals have these two molecules, fulvic and humic. And fulvic is that really small molecule that shuttles in and out, transportation for nutrients into the cell. And because it has that ability to change its polarity, it can then drop the nutrients in the cell, but then it travels around in the cell, picking up the biowaste, the toxins, the heavy metals, all of that stuff. And now that these nanoplastics, glyphosate, free radicals that have gotten into the cell, viral detritus, it clings to that molecule, and now it carries it out of the cell. When the channel opens, again, now the fulvic gets a free pass through, travels out of the cell, and then it changes its polarity again, and it drops that stuff off in the bloodstream.
That's so crazy. How does it know how to do that?
Well, it's
like spooky action.
It's actually not. When you really study it, it's all via this particular process called diffusion, and it's based on the law of the concentration gradient. So if you have more salt inside your cell and a channel opens up, the salt will go out. And if you have more salt in the cell, it will, out of the cell, then the salt will go in. It's just because in aqueous water-based solutions, which inside your body is all an aqueous solution, the law of the concentration gradient makes all solutions try to be equal. It just naturally happens. This is a very enhanced form of diffusion called co-transport. So this co-transport carries 60 times its weight of nutrients in, drops them off, carries 60 times its weight of biowaste and toxins out, drops them in the bloodstream. Now, the humic molecule, which is a very different kind of molecule than the humic, it's still a really strong electrolyte molecule, but it's much larger than a cell. It's really sticky on the outside outside, because of its electrical charge, has a huge amount of surface area. Now, the interesting thing about humic that's important for people who may have heard that, humic has heavy metals. Yes, it actually does have heavy metals in it. However, the interesting thing is those heavy metals are completely sequestered and bound in the molecule, and they do not come
Same
loose.
with zeolite. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, it actually binds to and chelates, gathers, binds to not only heavy metals in your system, nanoplastics, incredibly effective. It does something called adsorbing with glyphosate. It gathers senescent cells, so these zombie cells. It gathers endotoxins, viral detritus, spike proteins. It will literally cling to this molecule. At a certain point, the molecule gets so heavy, it falls out of solution and leaves your body. Now, this is when the herx can happen. So if your body is extremely toxic and you now are suddenly introducing humic, which easily gets absorbed through your gut into your bloodstream, now you've suddenly got a lot of humic, and those things are immediately binding to the humic, and now they're all leaving the body very quickly, and you start to get some detox symptoms. It's really the body saying, woohoo, yay, I can get rid of this stuff, and I'm going to do it all now. And you just need to slow it down is all. So
what about
slowly.
if someone is, very toxic and is prone to those kind of reactions? Would stacking this with like a great zeolite or activated charcoal or something assist with that? Or you just want to just pace yourself?
Yeah, I don't think so, because really humic is one of the most effective binders out there. So, you can continue to use your zeolite or whatever if you want, but I think they're kind of double duty.
Oh, okay.
Now, what I will say is if you're on a specific protocol, zeolite and these things aren't necessarily things you want to take all the time for the rest of your life. Humic is something you want to take all the time for the rest of your life.
Got it.
If you're doing a specific detox protocol that utilizes some sort of binder like zeolite or clay or something, go for it. Great idea. If you're, a cell core protocol or something.
Cool.
Yeah.
Epic. All right, that's it.
Okay.
I think those are my last two.
We did it.
We'll quit before I think of more, and we're here 4 hours.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
No, thank you so much, though. It's always fun to see you, and you're just cool to hang out with. Walk the dog. You're just a fun person and also super smart. So thank you so much for gracing us with your presence again today. And you guys definitely check out the lukestorey.com/beam, and don't forget your code Luke20. I highly recommend. Wouldn't talk about it. Wouldn't talk to you if I didn't believe in what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you.